Welcome to the first episode of Compassionate Coexistence, a podcast to help you cultivate connection and honor Earth. I'm Lex Sylvie, your fellow traveler on this journey toward hope, healing, and harmony for all beings. On a crisp day in March 2022, I caught up with Cynthia Tina from her home space at Headwaters, a multi-generational eco-village of 8 households on 14 acres in Vermont. The community has a garden, orchard, meadow, and greenhouse, and most inhabitants build their own homes using natural, sustainable building techniques and permaculture principles. Those innovators included Tina, who explained that she was in the process of building her own passive solar home. At the time of our conversation, she was serving as the co-director of the Foundation for Intentional Community. She currently is a speaker, educator, and consultant through her businesses Ecovillage Tours and Community Finders. As a matchmaker, Tina specializes in connecting people to intentional communities that would be a good fit, drawing on more than a decade of travel to communities worldwide and an active network of more than 100 sites. Her mission is to help bridge the gap between intentional community and mainstream society. She has a degree in sustainability from Goddard College and certifications in Ecovillage and permaculture design, as well as yoga teacher training. Thank you so much for joining today, Cynthia. Can you start by sharing a little more about how you found your community, how you knew it was where you wanted it to be, and some of the benefits that can come with living in an eco-village?
Well, I knew I wanted to live in an intentional community. It's sort of been my life and work for a while now. And my partner is actually Slovene, and he's co-founded a community in Slovenia. So I've spent a long period of time there. And for a moment, I was like, oh, do I move to Slovenia? I was really wanting to put down roots somewhere. And my family is here in Vermont, and it's kind of where I feel I have the strongest connection. And it's a lot easier living in the country where you're from and you speak the language and all of that. So I started looking at communities in Vermont more seriously. I had visited a few and I had friends in different places, but never with the intention of, oh, I need to find like the place I want. And Headwaters is actually one of the few communities in the world of intentional communities, at least it's a part of a small number, where you can build your own home. A lot of times joining a community, you're buying an existing home. So this has been a lifelong dream of mine to actually design and build a house. So that was a big selling point. I visited during the summer when the gardens were lush and full and kids were running around, and I had this feeling like, oh, this is a really peaceful place. I didn't want to be in a big community. I can go travel to visit those places. I wanted some that was low-key and had a strong focus on permaculture and families and lots of woods around and like a cute New England town. It checked off so many boxes for me. And and so I decided to go for it. You never really know how it's going to turn out or if this is the perfect place. I was just like, this seems good enough, and I'm just ready for the adventure.
Wow. Like, how does living at Headwaters allow you to live closer to the earth? And have you found that connection to the natural world to be healing?
I feel a deep connection to nature. I just got back from an hour walk in the woods and some trails over there. And I was like, oh, it's been a while since I've done this. And it's really important that I do it regularly for my mental health. So Headwaters is great. And I think a lot of these more rural intentional communities, because they do, for most part, are surrounded by a lot of woods and have access to nature. So that's a big part of it. And then in our community and in a lot of eco-villages, we're focused on growing food and habits. So that's a big focal point of our community. Everyone lends a hand in making the gardens happen, in landscaping. There's a lot of tool sharing, the knowledge sharing, things like that we do around the garden, big work party days. We also have a lot of really great features on our land. So we have a pond that the kids swim in. We have a sauna, we have a wood-fired hot tub. All of this is heated by wood, mostly that we harvest from the land and chop and prepare. We have acres and acres surrounding our community. Like, our community acreage is quite small, but surrounding the community, there's a lot of woods and farms. And so in the winter, because it's very cold, of course, here in the winter, there's this network of cross-country ski trails that comes alive in the winter months. And so people are out and about, and we do some group ski days. Yeah, but then I would say the kids who are mostly homeschooled, they are outside, rain or shine, most days of the year, playing with each other. So even though I'm not quite at that level, it's still very inspiring just to see them having a ball and, yeah, making all kinds of forts and playing games and epic capture the flag games in the summer, and like epic like soccer games and all kinds of games on the land. So I think that's a big part of our connection to nature.
I'm actually going to quote from your Ecovillage Tours website, where you offer travel packages to ecovillages here and abroad for the curious. You wrote that these tours are a chance to, quote, slow down, wake up, and build authentic relationships. I loved that, and I wanted to contrast that with this disconnect in society and the disconnect to the earth that I see in mainstream times. Do you see those disconnections as a source of dis-ease in our world today, with all of its polarization, where people don't know their neighbors, things like that?
I think you nailed it. I think the disconnect from place, each other, and our own psyche, our own whatever connection to ourselves. So yeah, this is that's the root of all of the other challenges and symptoms that stem from that. So yeah, of course. And also, like, I wouldn't want to just mislead you. A lot of people who live in community, they have jobs, they, have busy lives. I have a very busy life in some ways. So it's not like, you join a community and then all of that goes away. But at least you're in a community with other people that are usually striving towards that slower pace and that more connectivity, and you have more systems of support.
Stepping back a bit, it seems like you felt a curiosity when you were young about different ways of living, and you had the courage to follow that. What was that like? And what are your thoughts for others on allowing yourself to explore those tugs and trust your head, your heart, and your intuition in the process?
Very good question. ah, Well, I think you're right that, I did kind of take a look in pursuing this lifestyle, and it has been, especially earlier, my younger years, very scary. And a lot of unknown. And I have this just memory of, I did a program while I was at the first university I went to, St. Lawrence University. I did a program called the Adirondack Semester. And we lived in a little village of yurts with the students. We had all of our classes outside. Our professors came to us. It was incredible. It was like one of my first community experiences without really knowing that, oh yeah, we're kind of creating an intentional community. But anyways, I used that semester to decide to transfer to a different school. And this was a very big decision for me. And, like, my parents loved the school I was at, and I had a scholarship, and they were very happy for me to continue down this pathway. I was already like into nature, like too much for their comfort level. And then I wanted to transfer to this totally alternative school. And I just remember standing at the little boardwalk dock we had out by the lake and just really feeling like, okay, I'm stepping into some unknown. And like, I'm like falling into this void. And I don't know if I'm going to land or not, or how I'm going to land. And so I think other people going through, whether they're thinking of joining an intentional community or some other big life transition, it's a similar feeling. Like, we don't know the future, of course. And so there's a risk, especially because society tells us that these communities are not not fully acceptable. There's a lot of stereotypes, and a lot of stereotypes around not having a 9 to 5 and doing something radically different. So my family is my biggest supporters, and also my biggest like inner teachers because they just live a totally different lifestyle than I do. So
I'm glad you brought that up because there are conflicts and challenges that arise within intentional communities. And when I've been exploring websites, it's been really beautiful to see that many of these communities have a focus and a framework on peaceful conflict resolution or effective communication. I'd like to ask you about peace. How would you define peace? What does living in peace with other people look like in one of these communities? I guess I see peace as something that is active or maybe something that you have to work to cultivate.
yeah, I agree with you that peace is a practice. It's not like a state. It's not like an end goal. It's always, sometimes you're peaceful, sometimes you're not. And obviously just becoming more aware of your state and more mindful
Mm.
of the ups and the downs. And then hopefully over time they become a little bit closer to some equilibrium. But so for me, definitely, I struggle a lot with stress and anxiety. I'm doing a lot of work right now with FIC, and also being a business owner and building a house. So I don't think right now I'm a good model of peace. That's been different in different times of my life that have been less stressful. So certainly there are practices that help me, like taking a walk, taking a bath, just yoga,
Mm.
making sure I get enough exercise and good sleep and eat good food. All of those things help. And probably I would say it's true for a community. There are social hygiene practices, communication practices that can help us when conflict arises and when tensions arise. Um, yeah, our community also right now has not been experiencing the most peace it has since I joined. So our founder actually recently decided to leave the community, and she was holding a lot of responsibility and ownership. And so she decided to leave in the fall with her and her husband. And so this whole winter, we've been in a process of kind of figuring out, okay, how do we sell her house?
Mm.
How do we buy the property she was owning, our common land? How do we welcome in? We were welcoming in 2 new families to purchase her
Wow.
house and another lot, so that we can like make all the finances work. And we had a mediator help us through this. Actually, Laird Schaub was our mediator. He's one of FIC's course instructors. Yeah, and so getting help from our networks, and trying as much as we can within our group of people who are remaining in the community to learn from what happened and try to change our behaviors, take more responsibility, implement better behaviors to support a more peaceful community. Um,
Can you talk more about the unifying themes or the differences in the eco villages that you have visited?
there is a huge variety in each community is different, and feels different and has a different focus because it's made out of different people and was founded with a different intention or spirit or in a different time. So there's a lot of diversity. I would say that for eco villages, I don't know if you've seen Jen or Gaia Education, they have this mandala of sustainability.
Oh.
So this was created from people living in eco-villages who were educators and teachers in eco-village design. And they created this mandala that has many components of sustainability. So the 3 common pillars of sustainability are the social
Mm.
and economic and ecological. And so in most eco-villages, they're striving towards sustainability in those areas,
Okay.
like driving for social sustainability. How do we create cohesive and just inclusive processes, economic sustainability. How do we like create economic systems that aren't broken, that aren't capitalism? And then the ecological piece, of course. And then they have this fourth dimension
Mm.
of sustainability. That's the worldview or
Oh.
the cultural aspect. And I think this is where, like, whether or not an eco-village has renewable energy or is growing their own food or has a car sharing program, they all like really do come together around the cultural and the worldview piece. And this is more about like what we've been talking about, like connection
Mm.
to ourselves and our purpose, connection to uh, each other in this deeper way. I mean, there is a spiritual component there, but it doesn't have to be.
Mm.
Um, it's more of like a spirit or like a felt sense that you get at these communities, where, oh yeah, the people here are really embracing a different way of seeing the world, a much more respective and healing way of living. So yeah. I mean, of course, then most communities have conflict resolution policies if they're healthy. Most communities have a system for making decisions together. Most have, some sort of legal framework or structure that's holding them together as a community, especially if they're, living together on a piece of land. They have to do that legally.
You mentioned that there was a bit of risk in stepping out into the unknown. Can you speak to some of the possible rewards in living within an eco village or an intentional community?
Yeah. Well, you saw my talk where I have that list of like the benefits of living in community, and and personal growth like is a huge benefit. Oh gosh, I think I think I've oh man, I'm much more self-aware, more self-confident. I know how to give and receive feedback, or at least I think I know. I have mm, different, not that I always um, do them the best, but at least I'm aware of different tools for communication, like nonviolent communication. It's a tool in my tool belt, and so if I'm in a situation, I can draw on these different things. I think a lot of it comes to light in group situations where there's interpersonal dynamics, and I feel like because I've had so much facilitation experience living in community and working with community minded groups, I know how to step into a place of service to support community. Um, so that's been huge. Yeah, I mean, wow. But
Wow.
really it's come through making so many mistakes and having people like give me very valuable feedback and reflection, self-reflection. And I don't think we get that outside of those kind of intentional community or held spaces that community can create.
I think I was reading in your bio that a lot of the work that you do focuses on bridging the gap between intentional communities and mainstream society. I would love to hear your thoughts on whether there are steps that everyday people can learn from eco villages, and how they work to live in better harmony with each other and the planet. And if they are small steps, whether you feel that they can actually add up to make an actual difference.
Of course, there's so much people can do wherever they're living right now. So, creating community and shifting towards sustainability where you are right now is so important, and possible. And it doesn't have to be a big leap necessarily. We talked about some practices for fostering more peace in our lives. There's certainly more practices for shifting towards greater connection with nature. And I think when we do feel more connected with nature, we care more about the actions that we take. Also, when we have more knowledge about how those actions impact the environment in the long run. So, composting and being more conservative with our energy use, being more mindful about the products we buy. Um, Okay, so then the big question, does this really make a difference? I'm not sure. I think that the where we are right now and the vast number of people and the very powerful corporations and systems in place are on a certain trajectory and have so much momentum in one direction. And and I don't think that we should base our actions on, oh, I'm doing this because I'm going to help change the world. And this is, how we're going to shift small people taking actions. Like I think that's a nice narrative, but for me personally, that's not the basis of my decisions. My basis is more on, in this moment, does this help me feel more alive? Does this bring joy into my life in this moment, not in some potential in the future of what may or may not happen? Because I really don't know about that, but I do know what feels good now. And what feels good now is having a garden and eating my own food. It feels good, and it's good for the environment, but it feels good.
You can find links to Cynthia Tina's website and her businesses, Ecovillage Tours and Community Finders, as well as the Foundation for Intentional Community, in the show notes. Thank you so much for taking the time to travel with me today. May any words or wisdom that resonated stay with you and grow in the upcoming days. Till next time, stay wild and rooted in compassion.